Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's study hall. I am your host, Aged Boomer. Here is my co-host, Troy Pacelli.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay. Hello, everyone.
What you sipping on?
Water.
You're so boring.
I know it's boring this week. Well, I didn't want to have hot breath during. I do have a bowl of ginger ale in the fridge. Maybe I should grab it. I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry. I probably needed something with a little bit of alcohol in it, considering the topics we're covering tonight. But anyway,
I'm starting to think that's the case every week. I actually think this is a lighter week than usual.
I remember after the stream last week, I was telling you and I, we got to find a couple of positive topics to talk about, and well, we have one that could be positive, yes.
Yeah,
and
Nanette at the end of just peek behind the curtain last week, she was like, "You need to calm down. You got really, heated there." But all the responses that I got from the people that were in the stream, man, it was a great stream. Troy was so animated and exciting. I'm like, maybe that's just the shtick. Maybe that's where I mean, it's just how I am naturally. It's not really a shtick.
It's heated times we're living in. We're all cooped up. We're not having much fun. And the entertainment we do get is not that entertaining a lot of the time these days.
So what you're saying is I'm people's entertainment at this
pretty
point.
much. I think I think we're entertaining ourselves and hopefully the chat and anyone else who's listening.
So not that you asked, but I'm sipping on a plum wine spritzer. It's an invention of my own making, and I don't think it was that successful of an experiment. So I'll be switching to Dr. Pepper as soon as I finish this.
Sounds nice. That sounds nice, though. Plum wine spritzer.
Pretty kind of on the weak side. So
I think of Elliot Spitzer when I hear spritzer, but we won't talk about that on the stream. Anyway, hello to the chat. We have Back to the Drawing Board. Welcome. I think you were first. Welcome. Unless actually, Netter was first and then it disappeared.
Technically, I was first.
Oh, okay.
But I don't count because I'm in the stream. Okay. Then Netter. But if you want to go for honorable mention, I think that Melissa Harris was in there last night.
That's right. Okay. Well, everyone's first here. I'm kidding.
Darn right. Okay. All 7 of you.
Yes. Okay. Brian Gill Martin, welcome. Casey Scott, listening at work. Good thing to do. I used to have a job where I could listen to the internet at work. I used to listen to internet radio at work, actually, years ago. Is that the Dr. Pepper I just heard you crack open?
Mm-hmm.
Big Al Presents showed up. Thank you for wishing us well, Big Al. And okay, and let me click the little thing that says new comments. And of course, Nanette. Hi, Nanette. Netter's Network is here. She always sends hearts. That's nice. Men like hearts. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, from ladies.
We pretend. Yeah. Well, we pretend. We
don't. Actually, you know what? I take that back because I don't want to make any presumptions about anyone's anything. We'll talk more about that.
We'll talk more because we'll get there anyway. Because obviously, someone's making presumptions.
Right.
But anyway.
Yes, they are.
Wolf 10 Media, welcome. Okay. All right. And okay, guys, we have a treat. We have a first time on Study Hall. I'm going to try a share screen, and we're going to talk at what seems to be. Troy sent me some photos. So
how about I go into the spiel while you work through the text?
Well, I try to figure out what I'm doing. Okay.
So a little bit of update on the Batman movie. We've talked about it in the past couple weeks, and Mr. H has been talking a lot about it, and that's one area where I seem to disagree with Mr. H a lot. So we have received this week somebody, I don't know if it was leaked or not, but they have shared some behind the scenes pictures of the Batmobile. No, this is not a picture of the some cosplayer who has decorated their Trans Am to resemble the style of the 66 Batmobile. No, this is from the set of the movie. This is the further evolution of the pictures of the Batmobile that we saw earlier this year. Are you able to go through those? Because there's one that shows it from an angle showing the light underneath.
I can click on different ones, but I have to get out of this one. Sorry, I should just set something up where I could just breeze through.
No, that's okay. Go ahead and
let me go to the next one. At first, I asked you, what is this?
Yeah. Well, yeah. When I first sent this to Aged Boomer this week, he looked at it and says, "What am I looking at?" Because I started talking about it, and he was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that kind of speaks to the topic here because there was no context. So the fact that he didn't recognize it immediately says something about it. He didn't recognize it immediately as a Batmobile, let alone the new Batmobile. This is a slightly better picture of the side, and you can kind of see that stripe at the bottom there on the driver's side is actually glowing. That is I think you can see it better on a. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to make you advance to the next one.
Okay, let me do that. Let me go to the next one. What do they call that glowing stuff under the car? I know it's illegal in some cities. I remember
I don't know.
guys used to get their cars outfitted with that. Here we go. Here's another one.
Yeah, you're right. Some states don't accept that. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's an undercarriage light of some kind. So here's what I'm going to say. Again, I respect the heck out of Mr. H. I agree with him on so many things. He is by no means like a Snyderverse fanboy. This is not where he comes from. He is absolutely a muscle car kind of guy. And I get it, mate. I'm an ex-gearhead myself. I remember getting, sprouting an emotional Woody over nice, cool cars. But as nice a car as this might be, as much as this might appeal to a gearhead, or whatever, it's not a Batmobile. I don't recognize this as a Batmobile,
When I first looked at it, I thought Blade Runner car.
Yeah.
That's what popped into my head. And, I liked the Blade Runner car.
Or something out of Tron, maybe.
Or Tron, that's another one. Knight Rider, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, Knight Rider. I dig that. The only way you know it's a Batmobile, there's nothing on the back, the top, the side, only from the front. Here's a good example where you can see the wind spoil on the back there. It has a very subtle nod to some of the later Burtonverse, the Schumacher films, but very, very subtle. The only thing that says Batmobile at all is literally the orange bat on the hood. And it's very much in the style of that 66 Batmobile, but there's not enough of the stylizing of the car to recognize it right off the bat.
I'll say this.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I was thinking 66 Batmobile too, if it was like a convertible, right? And maybe a little longer. I could see it maybe as that. And again, I don't know what they're planning. I mean, I will say this. I remember on the episode of Batman, the animated series, they actually had an episode about the guy that created that helped build the Batmobile.
Right.
And when he first runs into Batman, he was actually a guy that worked for a car company, and he ended up getting fired because he was a whistleblower. Because he said, you're releasing a car that's not safe and is going to kill people. And he whistleblowed, and they were able to get the car off the market, but he ended up getting fired and couldn't get hired again.
Yeah.
So then Bruce Wayne hired him to work on the Batmobile because he was an expert car engineer. But it was just
I remember that, and it was a very interesting thing because they definitely do nods to the character from the Golden Age in the comic books, who was said to be the guy that did the Batmobile for him and stuff like that. But back then they never, fleshed out those characters enough to have a background. So, that made it really interesting. But yeah, I could have seen it if these guys doing this movie were trying to be clever and do a Burton-esque type Batmobile with painting and lighting stylization that evoked the 66 Batmobile. I'd look at that and go, okay, I see what they did there. That's pretty cool. But unfortunately, they did neither. It looks nothing like any Batmobile that's come before it. And that's a problem. It's not a Batmobile, in my opinion. Yeah, aged Wolf 10 Media saying it's not a Batmobile. It's still an ordinary car. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, maybe he'll get the real Batmobile at the end of the movie. Never mind. I don't care. I'm tired. More I hear about this movie, I don't know.
It is more reasonable than most other things when you say wait and see, because we're talking about a car. In an action film, a car getting blowed up by the end of the movie is not a difficult stretch, but still. if this is the promotional stuff that's going out there and you're trying to drum up interest, this ain't the way to do it. Orange Man Bat.
I'm sorry, that's funny. Thank you, Brian Gilmartin.
Very good.
Oh,
very, very good.
Let's see.
So that's the Batman news. Where do we? I mean,
that's it.
I don't think there's anybody in here showing any major support for it. You know, Glowing Undercarriage looks
feeling
nice,
bad for some of the supporting cast. That's what I'll say, because I think who's that one guy? Colin, the Irish actor.
Colin Firth?
Yeah, no, the other Colin
Farrell.
Yeah, Colin Farrell. He's playing the Penguin. They said he was unrecognizable, so it looks like he got into his role.
Yeah,
from what I've heard. Yeah, so I mean,
I'll tell you what, that between him and what's the gal playing Catwoman?
Oh, Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, between those two, completely transforming their bodies.
Yeah, I mean,
it
they're both
does make James Dean wannabe, look really stupid. It really does. Yeah, Zoe Kravitz. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
So I mean, I can see them both as their respective characters. I'm Pattinson. I'm getting a bad feeling, but we'll see. Maybe we'll all be our fears will be put to rest when this movie eventually premieres in 2025 or whatever.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm telling you, and this may pivot us into our next topic, but the landscape in Hollywood is changing, and I think this kind of silly attitude. I think Pattinson is not going to age well in Hollywood, in the new Hollywood, I guess we should say. He's going for the, any publicity is good publicity. I'm a rogue. I'm a rebel. I'm the guy you want for these kinds of roles. And it really looks like with the way Hollywood is hurting right now, we talked about this last week, that they've got to start hiring lesser name stars for lower money, lower the production budgets in order to survive. So they're not going to take shenanigans and people that aren't working with them.
So no $200 million movies that were reshot 10 times.
Exactly. So that you've actually spent as much as 10 movies, and now you have to earn that back with over $1 billion, because there ain't going to be over $1 billion direct to streaming service movies.
Back in the day, shooting schedules were very strict. I mean, back in the 60s, they were like, you have 3 weeks to shoot this or whatever, how many weeks, and you can't go over.
Yep.
And some movies suffered because of that, but they were very strict about budgets. And
one thing that we didn't prep for, but I did see as a Disney shareholder following the business, I guess Disney is staying on the cutting edge of filming, and the whole Mandalorian filming plan with those artificial backdrops that they're doing, the game engine real-time backdrops that they use have made filming so much faster. It's almost cutting filming times for their projects by half.
Okay.
And the cost is so much less than plus the whole CV situation makes it almost impossible to go on location to film. Well, you can create your set right there on the sound studio now. So they're pushing this out to their other productions besides The Mandalorian now, and other studios are trying to catch up. So that's what we're looking at. That's the future of filming is now, instead of taking 2 years to film a movie, they're going to be able to do it in 1 year. And, instead of 9 months to do a TV series, they're getting it down to just a handful of months. Yeah. That's what they're talking about.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this.
I said something's got to give, and necessity is the mother of invention. So there you go. But yes, let's give them all our Hollywood Apocalypse update. For the past 2 weeks, we've dedicated our shows to the Hollywood Apocalypse. I think we've covered it sufficiently, but there's still always a trickle of information coming out every week. So I think there's going to be an update every week, a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I'll have a sound effect at some point. Maybe a
Yeah.
nuclear blast or something. I don't know.
Or at least the sound of fire,
Yes.
crackling fire as Hollywood burns.
I
Right?
thought about that. Yeah, I actually, it's funny. Last week I did have like a crackling fire thing, but I was like, I don't know. I didn't do it, but
Start
yeah,
working on that. We'll probably need it.
yeah. Okay. Warner Brothers and Universal, they have no plans to buy movie theaters.
Yeah. So that was something I don't remember if I talked about it on the stream last week or if we just talked about it in private. But yeah, I had speculated that and this doesn't speak directly to what I was saying, but I was saying that I foresee a future where the different movie companies start putting out their own cinemas. And if you want to see a Warner Brothers film, you're going to go to a Warner Brothers cinema. And if you want to see a Disney film, you're going to go to a Disney cinema and so forth. But this article here from MovieWeb is basically saying that Warner Brothers has publicly said they're not planning on actually buying any movie theaters. Now, I don't think that speaks to my exact point. My exact point was that in the future, if they want to continue the cinema paradigm for business reasons, they're going to open up their own franchises or chains or whatever. I don't think that's what Warner Brothers is talking about. Warner Brothers is speaking to, it's not like they're going to buy out AMC or they're going to buy out Regal or something like that in the short term.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's what they were asking. Are you going to save AMC? And they said, we have no plans to do so at this time.
Exactly.
AMC
And think about it from political and business facing standpoint. What they're saying is sounds like one thing, but is ambiguous enough to mean a couple things, right? So they're saying we have no immediate plans to buy out these theaters. Okay. And honestly, they can't. If you think about it, all of these, we talked about how these cinemas are carrying so much debt they can't afford any new acquisitions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be something that Disney would have done, 5 years ago. Now, no one is solvent enough to do that. But I do think that what happens is, in the short term, they're saying no. A lot of these movie theaters are going to close up. And then Warner Brothers is later on going to say, we can't afford not to have cinemas out there. You know what? We're just going to start a chain ourselves. And they're going to start, they may not call it Warner Brothers Cinemas, but something like that somewhere down the line. But in the short term, I understand this entirely. It makes perfect sense.
But another thing I was wondering, at least from that article, is everything just going to go to streaming? Are they going to just double down on the streaming and forget about theaters altogether?
That certainly does seem to be what Disney is doing, right? And they've even outright said it. Again, from the investor standpoint, last week it came out in light of all the people losing their jobs. They also said we're moving our focus to streaming, and we've got a plan and this and that. And in the short term, this past week, Disney stock went up real high. And all the business insiders are going, what the heck? Do you not understand this news, investors? They're tightening the belt and laying people off. They're saying they have a plan, and their plan is to, shrink. And so now it looks like, and now people are starting to sell Disney again. But in the short term, it sounds good. Yeah, we know that the cinemas are a problem and CV and all this. So we're going to focus on streaming. And of course, Disney was planning on growing their streaming service anyway, right? That's what they had said. So they're just, accelerating that. And look, we knew that streaming was going to become a bigger thing, but the absolute failure of Mulan, and the kind of not as big a success as they had anticipated with Tenet. Oh, wait, Tenet didn't stream. It went to theaters, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And part of me wonders if both Warner Brothers and Disney did the wrong thing. And what they probably should have done was theaters and streaming. Okay. Yeah. At the same time, if you want to just rent it at home, do that for $20. Or you're going to go to a theater, you can do that. I don't know how, because it didn't Bill and Ted do that. And that they said that did respect them. Like, granted, that was a much smaller picture.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Real quick, let me comment on Brian Gilmartin's statement. I agree with you, Brian, too little too late. That really is the crux of it, right? Because theaters open, but now there's nothing being produced to put out. And Tenet did so poorly. I mean, it was successful in quotes, right? But not nearly as successful as they needed it to be. So yeah, too little too late. There is a domino effect here, and we're going to get into that a little bit more with the next point. But once you knock down that first domino, you can start putting them back up from the beginning, but it's still spiraling out in front of you.
I mean, the Pixar Soul is going straight to Disney Plus. Now, that's not going to be a rental on there. That's just going to be available to watch on the service, right?
Which one?
Disney Plus. Pixar Soul. It was.
I actually don't know. I heard mixed things. I heard one outlet say they were going to do it like Mulan, and you were going to have to pay for it, and something else said no, they're just going to drop it on, and you're just going to watch it. Which to me sounds like a complete failure. That's like we're giving it away for free now, and only the people that are already paying for our services are getting it.
You see, I disagree with you there. Here's the deal: the big problem I found with Mulan was that now you can rent it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
First time you could only rent it on Disney Plus, and you're already a subscriber. And all this content they've been telling you is coming.
Yeah,
they haven't been able to make because of the COVID. Okay, because of the beer bug, and as you call it.
Exactly.
And I was thinking that maybe a gesture, just throw Mulan on there. Because your subscribers. I mean, I know it costs them a small fortune. Well, probably not a small fortune to make, but and I was kind of thinking with Soul, maybe just throw it on there as a goodwill gesture to the people who are paying.
There's something to be said for that, really. I mean, I always say, when someone says something is overpriced or whatever, I say you charge what the market will bear, and if they're charging that much for it, that means there's enough people out there paying for it. It's not who the people making the decision on what to charge. It's the people that are paying for it that you need to blame. If it's important enough to you, you'll pay for it. If it's not, then do not pay that, and send a message that you won't pay that much. And that's exactly what I think happened with Mulan. They said, look, we're already subscribing. We're kind of almost not happy with the content we're getting. And now you're going to charge me $30 for this new movie. Yeah, no, I'll wait. It'll come out because for $30, I can wait until it comes out on DVD and just buy the DVD and own it forever.
Well, I'm going to get to DVDs in a minute too, but I did want to.
I know you have strong feelings about that market, but we definitely will get to that.
Yeah. But Wolfton makes a point. I don't like that. I was looking forward to Soul, Hellboy from Ron Perlman's voice. So that's interesting. Yeah, I saw the trailer for Soul. It looked good. It looked like a decent Pixar movie.
I know nothing about it, but
it looks like it's been a few months since I saw it, but it looked like it was a double thing. Like it's about people's souls, and I think maybe the afterlife and something. Don't quote me on this because
that worries me. I can't imagine what Disney's going to do.
But the idea was I think the guy was a music teacher and he was a jazz musician, so it's Soul. It's like a double thing.
I get it.
It looks cute. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it was good. I don't know where they were going to go with it, but I thought that's kind of a clever double meaning for the word soul. Have music soul versus real. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It looked interesting. I need to rewatch the trailer, but apparently it's coming to. No, there are people that like me. I agree with you, Wolf, tend to actually like to go to movie theaters and see stuff on the big screen, because there's a spectacle for it. And the last movie I saw on the big screen was 1917. That was back in, I think, January.
Yeah.
And that was a good movie. And I like seeing it on the big screen. But okay.
But I think what we're really getting into is just the economics of the situation. I mean, that's the center point of the Hollywood apocalypse is economics. And I think some people not really understanding economics, back in the 80s, Reaganomics or trickle down economics, people used to, balk about that and completely misunderstand what that meant. It is an absolute verifiable fact that whatever you do at the top levels of the economy have domino effects downstream. Okay. If you raise the taxes on, the highest, landholders, and people in real estate, right? Because you want to tax the wealthy. Guess what? Expect your rent to go up because they're going to raise your rent. That's the unanticipated trickle down. Okay. And what Reagan was saying is stimulating at the higher levels trickles down too. It does work. It all has a ripple effect, like
Right.
like stones in a pond. Well, here, this article that I just shared, the hidden loser in AMC Entertainment's collapse. What people don't think about, it's not just how it affects Hollywood and cinemas and entertainment, but AMC exists inside of shopping malls, for example. And if you lose the cinema, that's a huge hit. First, you lose the rent on that big segment. Who's going to move into, the place that AMC used to be, right? You're not going to get as much foot traffic from people coming in and going, I'm going to see the opening of Soul at AMC, but that movie doesn't start for 40 minutes. I'm going to, pop into, Hot Topic and look around and maybe buy something, It's affecting all of those businesses. That's your trickle down effect.
Yeah, I used to have a, like you said, a friend worked in a neighboring town, and we would do group. We would, like, a bunch of us from work would go to the theater, would go to the movie theater, and when we would have him come out of town to come with us, he would hang out in the mall for a little bit beforehand, and he kept telling me horror stories about all these mall stores that were just not in good shape, and this was when the theater was still thriving,
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it's going to be like if there are no theaters anymore. Who's going to be coming to these mall stores? I mean, we had a Ruby Tuesday in the mall in my area. It's gone now.
Yeah.
I used to go there before the movie or after, and then that's gone.
And that's just it. A lot of these businesses did build themselves up around the cinema, right? Because you're right. You go to have dinner beforehand. Like I said, you stop into the shops and whatnot. The whole mall is kind of built around the cinema. When the cinema goes, and malls weren't doing so great to begin with because of the move for people to go, I'll just go to the internet and get what I want. Amazon and, Hot Topics, web page directly and order directly from them and stuff like that. Kids aren't hanging out in the mall the way they used to, they can't now. Nobody can because of CV. And that's how all of this stuff, affects. People don't realize you focus on like a laser beam on something, and you don't have the peripheral vision to see all the other things you're going to be affecting,
Do you remember the mall growing up, Troy?
I do. I really do, especially around the holidays. I used to. It
was huge.
I loved it. I loved, it's completely changed now, but here in Illinois, in the Chicagoland area, Hillside, the Hillside shopping mall, they had the Hill, and on either side of the expressway, they had the Hillside Square and the Hillside Twin movie theaters. And you had that mall there, and I'd go with my grandmother on Wednesdays to go to Woolworth to have lunch at the lunch counter. And they had a Garrett's popcorn in there. We get popcorn on our way out. The whole theater, the whole mall smelled of that popcorn. I mean, that was just, it was wonderful. And then down the middle strip is where you'd, meet Santa Claus, and they'd have it all decorated like a Winter Wonderland and all that sort of thing. North Riverside Park Mall, which was the big one with the big AMC, the multiplex AMC. They had this little tobacco shop there where I bought my first pipe when I was in college. Yeah. Senior year in high school going into college. And I went there to buy a big, calabash meerschaum pipe, like the stereotypical Sherlock Holmes pipe. I was buying that as a gift for a buddy of mine who was coming back from the Navy. And that was his Christmas present. And I bought that and 2 ounces of Sherlock's Choice tobacco. And while I was there, I just got myself a little calabash pipe with a cherry cordial flavored tobacco. And never would have happened if that wasn't in the mall. That made me think of it, Yeah,
I mean, I think of mall memories. I, of course, think of Chick-fil-A, because that was before they had a food court. It was just a standalone restaurant.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They used to have a game store. It was the Menlo Park. No, it was the Woodbridge Center Mall in New Jersey. That was the 1st one I went to. They had a place. You'd love this place if you were into RPGs. They had a place called the Game Room. It was basically all D&D and other stuff like this phase of Star Trek games.
Yeah. We had a place like that called Games Plus.
Oh, I see.
Or Gamers Paradise it was in the big mall. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And he used to have like a little Arkanoid cocktail cabinet. And I always knew the sound effect, but I never played the game. And then when I finally played the game years later, it was like, that was in the game room. And it's like, and then like the Menlo Park Mall had a movie theater next to it. When I was older, when I went over there, and I saw some movies there. I saw Bring It On, the cheerleader movie.
Yeah.
Okay. And I used to go to the movies all the time there. And that was when movies were cheap in the afternoon, when you could go to a matinee for like $5, but I don't know. It's malls. That was back around the year 2000 though. And now it's getting depressing. I mean, what did they say in the news? J.C. Penney filed for bankruptcy in May.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I've said this for the longest time, because the same thing happened with, Carson's, and Macy's. I said, if they do not get in, if they don't pivot and do it hard and fast and get online and start doing either a partnership with Amazon or start trying to do the same thing as Amazon, they are going out of business. The first one that I saw that I pointed to and said, this is where they failed, was Toys R Us. If you went into a store and you were looking for action figures, you did not find them. They were either sold out or they didn't stock them, couldn't find them. And you had no way to go online to toysrus.com and order it.
Oh,
because there was no toysrus.com. Well, I mean, there was, but only for like how to find a store near you. There was no ordering it online or having it shipped to your store. So what would people do? Okay, forget about Toys R Us. I'll just go to Amazon, Hasbro.com, whatever, and get it directly. And it completely cut out Toys R Us, and they died. And I said, and the same thing's going to happen to J.C. Penney's. It's going to happen to all of these businesses.
Yeah, Macy's, Sears, Nordstrom, all in trouble.
The only ones surviving are the ones where you can go to their webpage and order something. And this is another reason why when I go into a store, even like Target, which has great online store, online capabilities. Yeah. If I go into the store and ask somebody where I can find something, and they're like, I don't know, or they look at their little pad and they're like, oh, that's only available online. Now I go, you know what? If that's the case, and I'll tell the person right there in the store, if that's the case, you're going to be out of work in the next 5 years. This place is going to close and Target is going to become an online store. Just so you know.
This reminds me of a story I had from my retail days. I used to work for a bookstore, a chain bookstore, which will go nameless here, just in case I can't talk about it. But a chain bookstore, and a guy comes in and he says, "Do you have the latest book by, I believe, W.E.B. Griffith?" Right?
Yeah.
He was a big author, and for some reason the company only sent us 3, and they sold out pretty fast. And I said, "I'm sorry, we don't have it. I could order you a copy, have it sent to the store." And you know what he said? "Drive me to Amazon." He walked right out.
Yep. That's like, exactly right.
And at the same time, I couldn't blame him, because I knew that this book was going to be a big seller, but the higher ups in the company said, "Oh, we only need to send 3 copies, and about 200 copies of Self Matters by Dr. Phil need to be on the shelf."
I'll tell you, the stores that are handling it the right way, though, if I go into Target, what I should be getting is, you know what, that's only available online. You want me to go ahead and order that for you, have it shipped to your house, no cost.
Yeah, well, this particular,
when you do that, then you go, well, either you do that or I go home and do it myself. Yeah, go ahead. It's that much fast. You've still gotten the service. That still gives me that positive interaction with your customer service that will keep me coming back to the store. That's the only thing that's going to save these companies.
Yeah. I mean, Brian Gilmore has this comment: malls have been going downhill for years. The internet has taken their place as the place to go and find anything you want.
But I think this goes back to your previous point about, release it in theater and on stream. Same thing with these businesses, make it available online and in the store. and have the two work together hand in hand, so that if you order it online, you can have it shipped to the store if you want. If you are at the store and you can't get it, we can have it shipped to your home if you want. Make it as convenient for the customer as possible. And that's the only way you're going to keep your business, on the cutting edge. But that's always been true. This is not, something that's new to the 21st century with computers. This is just applying the same basic concepts of service that have always been true for as long as business has existed, just knowing how to apply it to the modern setting. The way that you keep business is to keep costs as low as you can. I mean, as high as the market will manage, but still as low as you possibly can to bring people in. You got to walk that fine line. And you always, when you have nothing else to provide that's better than your competition, you can always excel in service.
Yeah, you can always excel in service, and you don't really get that from a soulless Amazon experience, right? But in fact, Amazon, I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of their website right now. It's hard to find things, I've been noticing lately.
Yeah, and
but Target has a nice website. I'll give them that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and just to not have to type, let me just address back to the drawing board directly. Actually, I'll be honest with you. Full disclosure, back to the drawing board. I don't know, because it honestly has been a lot of years since I've been to Hot Topic. I'm just going by what I remember. So yeah, I might be boomering it here and talking about ancient history. So you might be right. I don't know.
You know what's funny? In the malls in New Jersey back in the olden days, it wasn't Hot Topic that was the store like that. It was a place called Spencer's.
Yep.
Yes,
I remember
that.
Yeah,
that's where you'd go to get the whoopee cushion or the dirty.
I guess that's
books and stuff.
In my mind, I equate the two.
Yeah,
because I remember Spencer's was a place when I was in high school, right?
Yeah,
and so I think of Hot Topics as the modern Spencer's, and they may not be a direct comparison.
It seems like they sell similar things. Like maybe Spencer is old hat now, because I don't think people were. I don't know if they did as much with the fashion in Spencer Gifts. I'm trying to remember now, but they had like a lot of the goofy stuff,
And Hot Topic is definitely more the goth clothing and apparel. Because Spencer's had like toys and gadgets and stuff, and I don't think Hot Topic has a lot of that. But
it's just that
and let me just clarify what I said earlier. I'm not talking about Victorian and steampunk costumes. I'm just saying accoutrement for us making our own costumes.
Like what, you need a funny horn to put on your costume?
No. I mean like the little top hat, or the
stuff like that.
Yeah, the Lolita shirt or those kinds of things.
Yeah, I don't know much about this steampunk scene. It was featured on an episode of a New Zealand show called The Brokenwood Mysteries, where there was a murder at a steampunk convention.
Yeah, I'm always very careful about the information I get from shows like that, because like all of the information that I know about the furry community comes from that one episode of CSI, and I'm like, I hope this is just exaggerated and biased.
I couldn't tell on Brokewood Mysteries. I just laughed. I'm like, oh please, but it was it. Anyway, let's not talk about Broken Mysteries. This is a geek show. Broken Mysteries is a prim and proper normal person show. Okay.
Maybe.
I don't know, maybe not. Okay.
We're eclectic here. We can be normal too.
Actually, I don't think it's normal as an American for me to be watching a show from New Zealand. So I gotta watch.
No, actually, I think it's becoming more and more normal as Hollywood explodes here.
That's true.
The industries around the world are picking up the slack. That's telling us something too. That's on point. Good stuff.
Yeah, but competition, though, that says competition, e-commerce and video streaming is driving both movie theaters. And I have to tell you, I would hate it if theaters went away, because I go to movie theaters for spectacle. I like spectacle.
Well, and I think that's going to become what it was. I mean, you may have heard us in the Tuesday Night Classics talking about how different cinema was, and you used to dress up to go to the cinema, and it was an experience and everything, and it became completely prosaic, and you now you have people going in on their phones and talking, and dressing like they do at Walmart, and it's not the same experience. And I think it's gonna swing back the other way. It's gonna become a premium thing that you're gonna go to for the spectacle, and you're going to expect that everyone purport themselves appropriately.
So I'm going to expect to see Vin Diesel driving across a glacier at high speed. That sort of thing.
I don't know. I'm hoping that it also means that the quality of films is going to increase too. I don't know. We'll see. I have seen some talk about how the horror industry is probably going to take a bump up because historically horror films have been low budget. That's why Blumhouse is doing so well, putting out the crap that they put out, because they can put out a whole bunch of stuff cheap and people are going to it because they're looking for that gem, because people like horror movies. They always have.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny. I remember it was a couple. Regal was doing like I think it was Bloody Disgusting was showing old 80s slasher type movies in the horror theater, and I think I got to see The House on Sorority Row on the big screen. Have you ever seen that?
No, I don't think so.
Someone finds a severed head in the toilet. That's one of the big scenes in that.
Wow.
It's not that great a slasher movie, but it was interesting seeing it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Okay, because I figure how often do you get to see? Because I wasn't seeing those movies in the 80s because I was too little to be going seeing those on the big screen. But I was always curious as to what the thing was. But I Ben-Hur. Let's be honest. I'd love to see Ben-Hur on a huge screen. Okay.
I'll tell you what, those old movies coming back to the theater, we're seeing it happen right now because there's no new ones to put up there.
Yeah, they should re-release Ben-Hur on the big screen. That's a long movie, but I'm terrified though. If everything is getting pushed on streaming, I'm worried about what this is going to mean for DVDs and Blu-ray. This is my own personal thing. This wasn't any article because I'm a DVD and Blu-ray collector, and there used to be kind of an ecosystem. In the old days with VHS, it was get released in the movie theater, okay, then get released for rent on VHS, and then eventually priced to own. I mean, there were exceptions to this, but a lot of the time, a lot of those VHS tapes when they first got released, they were not priced to own yet because they were giving them to the rental stores, okay?
Right. They were like 80 to 180 bucks each.
Yeah, and then the companies, the movie companies, the movie studios went to Blockbuster and says, okay, we'll offer you the same deal with DVDs. And Blockbuster said, we're not putting DVDs on the shelf to rent. Okay, we're sticking with VHS. And then the big companies like Warner Brothers said, okay, we're going to price them to own on the market. And I think that killed Blockbuster. Okay.
Yep. And exactly did.
But now we have streaming coming. And I just worry that if a lot of these original movies like Pixar's Soul comes out, and it's Pixar Soul comes out and it's a big Disney Plus exclusive, will they ever want to release that on are they ever going to want to release that in a format you can own when maybe that discourages you from subscribing to Disney Plus?
I see what your logic is. But I think you might be jumping the gun on it.
I hope I am.
Maybe that might be something down the line, but right now they're so behind the gun, they will take any money they can get.
I mean,
there is still too much money to be made in DVDs. I belong to the freaking Disney DVD club, you know?
Okay, so they're still pushing that.
Yes, they absolutely are. in the old fashioned way, if you buy this many, you get this much for a penny, and that kind of stuff.
I saw that. I never did it though, but I
did that just to get my to get the up to Endgame, Marvel films.
Do they have exclusives that you get through them? Like I think was the Black Hole an exclusive on Blu-ray? I think I read somewhere that
I haven't been looking real closely at it, but I think so.
So that would be neat to own, but I don't think it's available in stores. You have to do it through
very, very disappointed though with the way DVDs and especially Blu-rays are being used. We've talked about the HD quality and how so many Blu-rays are not Blu-ray quality. They're just DVDs put onto a Blu-ray disc.
Okay. I'm gonna interject here. May I?
Yeah, please. You probably know more about it than I do.
I always go to Blu-ray.com or High Definition Digest. I check out reviews of the prints of the movies. Okay?
Before you buy them,
because sometimes you get bad prints on Blu-rays. And my issue with, like for instance, the original release of Top Gun on Blu-ray, it didn't sound good. Okay, It didn't sound like the upgrade over the DVD that it should be. But
Yeah.
then we're gonna have Maverick come out, so they did a brand new 4K remastering of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do like it whenever they have a new format and they remaster a new format, when they release it in the lower format, it's still better than it was before. So, for instance, since they had to release a 4K Blu-ray of it, if you just buy the regular Blu-ray, that's still better quality print of the movie you're getting than you would have gotten on the regular standard Blu-ray.
Gotcha.
Same goes for DVD. Like a lot of the time when a Blu-ray got remastered movie came out on Blu-ray, even when the DVD came out at the same time of that new Blu-ray, it was typically the picture quality on the DVD was also better. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did give them points for that. I know and Blu-ray remastering can be hit or miss. That's why I always go to these places. Like the Bond movies are always a mixed bag. For instance, they love what they did with the Connery movies on Blu-ray, but then they were screaming about Pierce Brosnan's Goldeneye.
Sure.
So.
But that's my whole thing with these days with 4K being out there. It's like, if it's not 4K, I don't know if it's really worth it,
Yeah.
But then again, I don't have much of a dog in the hunt because I still pick the DVD over the Blu-ray just because I don't care that much.
I still buy DVDs every now and then. I would tend to buy a lot of anime DVDs on standard DVD, though eventually. Or I would like to buy combo packs because sometimes combo packs give you the best of both worlds. You get the Blu-ray and the DVD.
Well, that's true.
Sometimes they're even cheaper than buying just the regular DVD by itself. So I would do that. And I was reluctant at first with Blu-ray. It's like, I'm not doing it. But I got a PlayStation 3. And then I still have a ton of DVDs, and I don't really want to upgrade. In fact, I will say this. I don't know if you have a 4K TV yet. Do you?
I do not. Yeah.
I'm going to say, just from what I've heard, I might avoid a 4K TV.
Until the technology's.
Well, not only that, but I think it ruins regular DVDs because I think regular DVDs can be upscaled on a regular high-definition TV, and they can still look good. Like most of my old DVDs, I have an upscaling DVD player. I have a Blu-ray player. It makes the image better, and it looks better than you would think it would look. Not quite up to Blu-ray quality, but it still looks good. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
And you can get an upscaling DVD player for very cheap now. Sony makes a very good one you get for like $50, But it's just I'm a DVD collector. I like collecting old movies, but I also like getting the new stuff, and I'm worried that the new stuff is going to be exclusive to streaming. But we'll see, because like even Netflix, when they release stuff like Stranger Things, they take forever to release those seasons on home video because of course they want you going to the streaming site to watch it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, but again, I will always say, be sure to, whatever your preferred method is, get that physical media before they decide they're going to re-edit it, they're going to make it unavailable, it's going to get canceled by cancel culture, whatever it is. Get it, hold it, keep it if you love it.
I'll be blunt. I became terrified of the whole 20th Century Fox catalog because Disney bought it out. And keep in mind, 20th Century Fox goes back to the golden age of Hollywood. Okay, they have been around for ages, and I was worried that some of these old noirs, I don't know what Disney's plan was with any of this stuff, and maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they'll be fine, but that was back when I was terrified of Disney. But
better to overreact than underreact, is my opinion.
Well,
and risk loss.
Exactly.
But that's just me. That's the Boy Scout in me. Be prepared, right?
I agree with your
should
the
we
stuff you love.
Should we I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Should we
I was going to say, should we go ahead and hit our what we think is our positive point for the evening?
Yes. Well, this was mine. I don't know if this is yours. Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Okay. Legendary Pictures. Transformers producer. Don't be terrified. It's just a producer. Okay. Don Murphy. And it's going to be based on the first Buck Rogers novel, Armageddon 2419 AD, by Philip Francis Newland, that was made back in, 1928?
Yep.
So, okay, you're more the Buck Rogers expert than I am.
Well, let me tell you something. In the thumbnail, I said, no, it's not what you think. And that's exactly right. Because every outlet that's talking about this, the visual that they use is the movie poster from the Gil Gerard Buck Rogers. This is not a remake of that. It is not a reboot of that. It is not in any way connected to that. They are going back to the source material. That could be a very, very good thing. It'll be something completely separate, focus on the source material. It could be a very, very bad thing. And I'm just going to say John Carter of Mars.
I didn't see that in the theaters. I checked that.
Nothing again. I didn't see the movie either. I don't know if it was good or bad. I'm just saying it was
It was all right. It was a flop though, and I will say this though. I gave Disney points at the time, and I used to say that Disney took risks.
Yeah,
because making a John Carter movie was risky. Making Guardians of the Galaxy back when the MCU was going, Rocket Raccoon, no studio would have done that. They did. So now I don't know. Like I used to sing Disney's laurels back then. That doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. You are mixing your metaphors, but I
think so. Yes. Anyway, but this article was rather weird though. Dark Tower. That this was like what they wanted to do with the Dark Tower books, a prestige television series that leads into a blockbuster. That's not what they did with Dark Tower. They just released a standalone movie that no one appeared to like, and then they're apparently wanting to do an anime style animated series based on Buck Rogers. I
don't know. I mean, if they go like if they go like with the 80s style, the like rock and roll kind of thing, that might really be good.
Yes, I mean we have a I mean we there are plenty of good-looking American cartoons. Don't get me wrong, I love the anime, but I kind of don't think we should be doing our own thing because but we'll see. I don't know even know anime style unless they hire Peter Chung. That would be
it depends because I'm starting to learn little by little from Wolf 10 Media and whatnot. I'm starting to kind of get the idea that my impression of what anime is and what other people's impression of anime
are going to be completely different.
And if you say in the anime style, that covers a lot of ground. You know, that's like saying in the Hollywood style almost. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, good point.
So, but yeah, what it comes down to is I think it's great. I think it's good for them to experiment. Here's the problem though. They're touting it in the way that, look, we're going back to this franchise. Well, they're appealing to the Gil Gerard fans and the 80s Buck Rogers fans. They're all going to be very disappointed when it comes out and it has really nothing to do with that, going further back to the source material. That original source material has almost no fans left. How many people listen to Buck Rogers on the radio or read books or magazines about Buck Rogers? Who remembers the 50s ray guns?
Or the comic strips from the 30s.
Or the comic strips, right, exactly. What people know and remember, the fan base that they could tie into would be the Gil Gerard fans, So I think they're appealing to the wrong people the way they're going about it. But I don't know. I'd say it's positive in that it's what we've been saying. We need something new. I'm saying that I see a lot of potential pitfalls for them.
Yeah,
I do. It could very, very easily go the way of John Carter, but hey, let's hope not. Let's hope it's something. And my other concern though is that if it does go that way, if it does flop, then you're never going to get anyone to invest in revitalizing or doing a reboot of the Gil Gerard story. That idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Which I think they could do so easily and so well right now. Can you imagine some instead of setting it in 1987, with NASA launching the last of its space probes, it's 2020, okay, and NASA launches not a deep space probe, but some experimental ship.
It could have something to do with the Space Force.
Exactly. Anything. Yeah. And then just have, a single pilot doing a test run on a ship.
Yeah.
And it gets lost, comes back, and it's 500 years later. And, there's been war. And I mean, unfortunately, Hollywood's going to throw all their politics into it. Well, the smarter thing to do would be to say there's a war and we don't even know what the war was about 400 years ago. Well,
that would make more
anymore.
sense.
Yeah. And we're relying on you because you come from that era. You can help us learn our history all over again. And then if you want Buck Rogers to interject some modern politics and his commentary, I guess you can. But I mean, that would be interesting. And then you appeal to the nostalgia by having the ships be a similar style, by having Tweaky and stuff like that.
That would be awesome. That would be cool to see, though, because it would be. Uh, we don't have interesting visions of the future these days a lot of the time, and I'd like to see a step back to that.
Well, and that's just it. And the Buck Rogers it wasn't the happy joy of Star Trek, but it also wasn't the doom and gloom of Battlestar Galactica either. It was kind of that middle ground where there are elements that are really something to look forward to, but there was a trade-off and there was a lot of loss that came from that.
Exactly.
And Buck Rogers now straddles those two worlds and offers, to help with the healing and whatnot. It was an interesting concept. It doesn't tread the same ground Star Trek did, and it didn't go completely grimdark either. So I think that would be a great thing for them to do right now. But
stay the middle ground.
Nobody is taking risks, and they are with this. I'm just hoping that it pays off for them in some way,
We'll see. I want to respond back to the drawing board real quick. He said anime isn't a style, just animation with Japanese sensibilities. Just so you know, that wasn't Troy saying that. That was the article that said that. Okay.
Yeah.
That was,
exactly. In fact, he seems to almost be reiterating what I was speculating.
Yeah.
That I don't think that it's very meaningful to say anime style, but I do believe that many people in the States, when they say anime style, they mean something by that. And I'm just saying your mileage may vary. You may not interpret it the same way as it's intended, and clearly not,
I hope this is good. I don't, but like you said, you really don't think they're going to be going for the Bill Gerard series, right?
Gil Gerard, yeah.
Yes.
No. And at least that article pretty much states that they're not. If you read through what they're saying, they're going back to. That looks nothing like what the Gil Gerard backstory was.
Yeah.
The only thing that the Gil Gerard 80s series took was a guy named Buck Rogers, leaves Earth and comes back in the 25th century. There's been a war, and but the way the war happened and the exploration of this world, the world building, was completely different.
Yeah, I mean, they've done this in anime too. Like, there's an anime I like called Appleseed that's also based on a manga where World War III happened, but they don't really go into detail who started the World War III, just that everybody lost. Okay, because in World War III you're going to have nukes flying everywhere, right? So
my concern is that by the same analogy, this would be like someone creating an Appleseed and you thinking that it's that anime, and what they're actually doing is an animated storyline about Johnny Appleseed.
It's a weird title. Don't get me started. Well, that'll be another topic for weird titles for old.
Be way over my head because I don't. What do I know from anime? But
no, Bubblegum Crisis is another one. I'll get to that later. Anyway, should we move on to Star Wars?
Sure.
Now you're gonna listen to me when I'm talking to you about this, and you're gonna be respectful. Okay, this is the High Republic. Disney and Star Wars.
So let me go on mute while I go to the bathroom. You go ahead and talk.
No, you'll leave the flushing on while I'm talking.
Anyway, that would be a good sound effect.
Disney and Star Wars to redefine the Force with the High Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Lucasfilm Publishing creative director Michael Siglain. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That states that the Force is perceived differently by different Jedi. That's interesting. What about the sacred Jedi text? But never mind. Okay. Remember that scene from Last Jedi?
They burned those up, right?
They burned those up. Yeah. Well, this is the High Republic. They would have had plenty of them run. Anyway. Okay. So hold on. Oh, okay. Here we go. I'm going to read some of these interpretations by different Jedi. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But through the manuscripts, we see that other Jedi also have their own way of relating to the Force, because the Force is obviously an energy field that binds and connects all things as Yoda describes it. But that's Yoda's perception of it. That actually came out of Obi-Wan's mouth. I assume that's where he got it from Yoda. Um, okay, so we have one Jedi named Chris says that she calls it the Song of the Force, and so for her, all the different Jedi have their own tones and instruments, and it all comes together into this symphony of dissonance and uh, assonance, and all these beautiful things that she is able to perceive the way the Force connects all things as music. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Baringo, who is a Wookiee Jedi, he's a Wookiee Padawan that we also meet in Light of the Jedi. He sees the Force as a great force because he's obviously from Kashyyyk, which is the Wookiee homeworld. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, yeah. I think I'd heard that
Okay.
a time or two.
Okay. And he's a force being, so he sees himself as one leaf on a great tree that's part of a great forest, that's part of a great world, that's all just interconnected. Thoughts, Troy?
I didn't actually go to the bathroom, so I can't do the flushing sound.
Okay.
So just imagine that I did that.
I'm not sure where they're getting at with all this. I have suspicions that they don't.
I'll give my. Well, first, I'm going to point out that there's been a lot of people talking about this. Mecorandum had a lot to say about it. Everyone else had some commentary.
I have more I can read to you too, but I'll let you go.
We could be very generous with our interpretation of what they're saying here. I'm going to make an analogy to those of you that are Green Lantern fans, okay, from way back. The Green Lantern Corps had a very interesting character named F. Sharp Bell. He came from a world that had no light, and they had no ability to see. There was no concept of vision. Everything was sound. So there was no green for them. There was no light. Therefore, his ring was actually an F sharp bell. And he had a very interesting, different take on the oath. And I don't remember what it was, but
okay.
It involved, instead of, Green Lantern's light, it was F sharp's bell or whatever. And it was really a cool idea.
Okay.
But you assume, and it was clear from the storyline that his abilities were exactly the same. It drew from the exact same power battery, and it was a perception thing. It's just, I mean, if you're blind, that doesn't mean that things aren't exactly the same. You just perceive them differently. And if that's all that this is, trying to understand the Force, you describe it differently because you think differently, and you think of it as harmonies, or you think of it as a river, or you think of it as whatever. Because let's face it, even as we've been talking today, we've been using analogies. We compared economics to ripples in a river, or the trickle down theory, or the rain. That doesn't mean it is actually literally rain. Or it is, or I perceive it as rain, but you perceive it differently. No, it's just an analogy. I'm going to be generous and suggest that's maybe what they mean. But I think a more realistic thing is, I think most people are taking it as, yeah, this is Disney introducing their moral relativism. And they're saying there is no absolute truth. It's whatever you believe, which is that modern progressive concept that they're trying to shoehorn into the Force.
That's what I think they're doing.
Yep.
But we'll see. It could just be they're just doing something fun for the kids, which I'm assuming is what this is aimed at.
Well, and I think I'm going to put a different spin on this.
I'm using a sinister notion there.
Well, no, yeah, I have a very different take on this that I haven't heard any of the other commenters say. I always try to give you something different here than you'll get from the other big name YouTubers, because I like to think I'm different, but and Nanette will tell you I'm very different, but and that's not necessarily a good thing. But hey, Leia plus size, glad you're here. We're talking about Star Wars related
talking
stuff
about
here.
the Force, and it's what you make it to be. Okay,
But here's the thing.
Ignore the sacred Jedi texts. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're talking about the High Republic here, right? We're talking about their books and their video games. I'm sorry, man, but you threw out the EU. I'm going to have a real hard time investing in a new EU, and I think a lot of fans are too. I don't think anybody is going to be accepting this as continuity canon. And it's going to be very easy for the powers that be after Kathleen Kennedy to say, yeah, that's just non-canon EU stuff. Forget about that. That doesn't have any bearing on Clone Wars and Rebels and the original trilogy.
Who is the target of High Republic?
SJWs that don't have any interest in Star Wars,
like
all the other SJW BS that Hollywood keeps putting into their stuff at the alienation of their fans.
It's just like all different Marvel where they're trying to push it on libraries and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Schools and whatnot. And I'm wondering if that's what this is.
Absolutely. In fact, it's even more insidious than that. Not only is it appealing to the SJW crowd that isn't interested in Star Wars, they're hoping to use it to indoctrinate children because it's going into kids' books.
Yeah. I mean,
very much like, although it's not a topic we're going to, dedicate any time to, the whole thing that's going on with Barbie and their media presence.
Do I know what that is?
I will go. I will talk about it very briefly.
We can always say it for next week too.
We can talk about it more next week. But
why not? Why not? That might be interesting.
But Barbie has Mattel has decided to get into the whole BLM and fourth wave feminist talking points through Barbie and her kids interactive online thing. Barbie has this like talk show, chat show on.
I saw that years ago. I saw a couple of them.
And now she's getting behind BLM and she's getting behind fourth wave feminism and voting for women and and we're talking radical race theory type stuff, radical fourth wave feminism type stuff.
Oh, who's
clearly indoctrination for children?
Who's against voting for women?
Nobody. But they're basically saying they're really pushing a lot of the myths about going back to as if it was still the 70s and saying women don't get voted for because they're women.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I look at people like Feinstein and AOC, and I really don't see where your problem is. But okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. I do see how the most recent SCOTUS appointment is being treated, though. Oh, but that's not what they're talking about, right? Yeah, very, very. It's impossible to even talk about this without talking politics because it is so political, and it clearly is indoctrinating children. I mean, it's not even conspiracy theory.
Okay,
it's ham-fistedly obvious.
So maybe this High Republic thing isn't quite as ham-fisted, but we don't know enough until these books actually probably come out.
That's just my speculation.
We're going to wait. The books will come out. We'll see how they rank up against the EU, because I guess this is going to be the new EU.
It's the new EU they're trying to push. But I'm telling you, even the EU, for as much as it's beloved, or at least portions of it are beloved by fans, everyone has always acknowledged they knew it was a beta canon. They never accepted anything as true canon from the EU.
Right.
It only got elevated after we got Disney Star Wars, and people were like, well, this is BS. Heir to the Empire was so much better.
It was so much better because at least it was entertaining.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I will say this, though. I do remember that line from the first Star Wars where Obi-Wan talks about and explains the Force. And there was such good world building just in that movie, how it's very simple. Anyone from any culture, religion can understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've heard people make arguments about it being, Judeo-Christian based. No, it's Zen Buddhist based. And I sit back and I look at all of it and I go, you're all right.
Yes.
I mean, there are certain universal truths. That's the big problem for the progressives today. The idea that there are universal truths.
And that's sort of what Star Wars was kind of.
Exactly. So that's what I meant when I said they're trying to retcon it. They're trying to say, no. It's not what Lucas meant. Yeah, well, we kind of have already known what Lucas meant. Whether you liked it or not, it's what he meant, and you're just rewriting it. And you're, again, alienating the fans with BS that nobody cares about.
I mean, I will say this, Leia plus size, you have a point to think I have been a Barbie collector for 25 years, and look what they've done to her. This makes your Barbies all the more valuable. Okay.
Maybe.
I mean, we'll see. Hopefully this is a phase and it will disappear too. I'm hoping all of this stuff is a phase.
The upside that I always say is the upside to get woke, go broke is the go broke part. And, it can only last so long before they realize that they've made their points and they've gotten their message out, and they are now broke and can no longer get their message out anymore. It's destined to happen. You want it to turn around, you need to stop and at least get more subtle about it.
Yeah. But
there we go.
Should we go on to the red alert?
Yeah. So we started out this week, instead of with the school,
yes,
we started out with the red alert klaxon, because now we're going into the second hour of the show, and it's going to be mostly Star Trek based. There's a lot of Star Trek news right now.
We lost half our viewers. I'm kidding. Stick around. It's
they didn't have that many viewers to begin with. So
no, I'm saying we, because the people aren't Star Trek fans.
I see what you mean.
Professor Geek.
Yeah,
he knows Star Trek. He at least watched the Kirk and McCoy stuff and Spock and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he can certainly empathize with the Star Trek fans that are going through the same thing with Star Trek that the Barbie fans and the Star Wars fans and the Doctor Who fans, besides Al, are going through.
I'm telling you. You know what I was like? Do you ever see that movie Fiddler on the Roof?
Absolutely.
I remember Tevye, and his traditions keep getting tested.
Tradition, yes.
Until the third daughter, and he says, "No, I can't accept this," because she leaves his religion and marries a Christian. Remember that?
Yeah,
and he's like, "That's how I was with Doctor Who. I'm like, I can't come back to it now," and it's sad. And Doctor Who, I'll be blunt, was my favorite of the big three, which is Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who.
And as everyone was saying, when you talk,
that broke my heart.
When you talk progressive, sorts of messages, Doctor Who always was. They're not wrong when they say that, but it always comes back, and Star Trek was that way too. But the problem was there was also a canon to respect. When you throw that out in favor of your message, that's when you lose people, So now, just as a symptom of what's happening with Star Trek, just so you know, you may be surprised by this. Everybody, hold on to your seats. If you're not sitting, sit down. This is going to shock you all. But the Las Vegas Star Trek Con for 2020 has been canceled. Shocker. But
in Las Vegas?
Yeah, in Las Vegas.
I figured the heat out there would have gotten rid of the beer bug, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Well, but here's the interesting thing, though. Unlike all the other cons that have been canceled or gone virtual or whatever, there's an added element to the Star Trek one. Okay. Oh, I'm falling derelict in my duties. I haven't dropped my sourcing for you guys. I always encourage people to take a look at the articles that we're talking about, and this one is not even an article. I am linking directly to the landing page for creation for the convention company. Their what do you call it? Their statement. In fact, you know what? Let me take a look at this real quick. I'm going to call this up and read off a portion of it to you, because it is. So here's the official line. Dear fellow Star Trek fans, during this pandemic crisis, Creation Entertainment remains steadfast in keeping the health and safety of our attendees, celebrities, and staff at our top priority. While we had hoped to present our official Star Trek convention on December 9th through the 13th of 2020, due to ongoing local, federal, and international protocols, we are unable to do so. We will be next returning again to our traditional our traditional time of year, and we'll be back in Vegas on a new date, August 11th through the 15th, 2021. at the Rio All Suite Resort Hotel and Casino, and it's beautiful state-of-the-art convention center. The year 2021 marks the 50th anniversary of Creation Entertainment and the 55th anniversary of Star Trek and the 20th anniversary of our convention in Las Vegas and Gene Roddenberry's 100th birthday year. It's the perfect time to celebrate, and no city is better than Las Vegas to do just that. Well, that's some pretty good spin. That's not so bad. We are renaming the convention. This is the important point. Listen very carefully, everyone. We are renaming the convention Creation Entertainment Presents the 55-year Mission Tour. Let's stop there for a second, people. What's missing?
Star Trek?
There is no mention of Star Trek.
They should have called it Shut Up Wesley Convention.
I'm going to get to that. There's a reason that they're not mentioning Star Trek.
Okay.
Actually, okay. I'm going to drop down cosplays, prizes galore. It's going to be a hot time of the old times tonight. We'll immerse our attendees in the positive and loving atmosphere with thousands of other fans as we all celebrate Gene Roddenberry's legacy. CBS is not an official partner of this event. Boom. Put those two things together. The name, not mentioning Star Trek, and CBS is not an official partner of this event. That's the added benefit here, people. Creation is no longer a licensee of CBS Paramount and does not have exclusive rights on Star Trek. Star Trek is moving to a different convention company next year. So yes, all that CV stuff is true. And yes, all those concerns are true. And it probably would have been canceled anyway. But they also lost the license. So they couldn't do the official Star Trek convention this year. How's that? And I'm not taking that from anywhere but Creation's webpage.
How would they lose the license, though?
You're asking me now to speculate on what's going on.
So we don't know. Okay.
I'm giving you the facts.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know. There's a couple of things that I can say, and you can draw your own conclusions from them. I know that Creation has kind of screwed up in the past couple of years and really pissed off a lot of people. So I could totally see. That's an interesting question. I'll get to that. I'll try to get to that later on, Melissa.
I'm going to chime in it, but wait till maybe we'll throw the end of the stream. That's a good question.
Let's see. We'll see if we have time because we do have a lot of points to cover on Star Trek.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it sometime. If not this week, next week. It's a good question.
But what it comes down to is I don't think that CBS is real happy with the way the convention has been going for a number of reasons. I think that big conventions overall have been struggling in a lot of areas. And CV really this year has brought it to a head. We've seen it with San Diego Comic-Con, with New York Comic-Con, and now we're seeing it with Creation. But Creation had some big problems last year too. There used to be a big Chicago-based Creation Con. That's gone bye-bye long time. The Las Vegas became the big one. Kind of, I always felt like trying to pick up. It started out in Las Vegas because of the Star Trek experience, but that went away. So now it's just legacy that has even been happening in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has lost a lot of tourism over the past 10 years, and this year has just decimated it. So yeah, there's a lot of factors going into it that are really, but last year was really bad for people that went to Creation and they said, that's it, we're done, we're never coming back. So I think there's a lot of Trek fans that are very, very happy with the fact that Creation lost the license. But the absolute answer to the why of it, we're going to be speculating about that for a while, I think.
Okay. So have you been to any of these?
Actually, funny that you mentioned that. Nanette and I actually met at a Creation convention here in Chicago. Many years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. That was how we met. So, I mean, I do have that positive aspect to say about it. I joined all of the the Star Trek related fan groups through creation, including the current Klingon groups that I'm in. So there's something to be said for that. Not that they were directly affiliated with creation. They just happen to have been at those conventions recruiting, and that's how I met them. Yeah, creation used to be before they were officially licensing with Paramount and CBS. They were the fan con that everyone went to. So creation was my first con. It was my first Trek con. But then I did not go to, because let's face it, flying out to Las Vegas is just freaking expensive. It's why I've never gone to San Diego Comic-Con too. And so although Nanette and I did go to the Star Trek experience, we went the week before the convention, and so we didn't actually go to the convention, and we didn't feel like we missed anything, because it was really the Star Trek experience that was the experience, not the convention. I said, we got the convention at home that we can go to, and we got the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas that we can go to whenever we want, as long as it existed. Now we can't anymore, and all we have is our fond memories.
Well, I guess they can't do an online convention.
You wouldn't want creation to, because they weren't doing a very good in-person convention, and the bigger conventions haven't been able to figure out the right formula to do an online convention. So but yeah, that's the other thing too. They couldn't do an online convention under the current license because they lost the license, so they're really having to rescramble. So yeah, that's what's going on with so that's a big hit to Star Trek overall.
I would imagine. I would imagine that is a huge deal, and it's unrelated to what was going on with the Diamond, but it's almost like the Diamond not supplying the comic books to the stores anymore. It's like,
it's similar. It is very, very similar. But the difference here, to the credit or the benefit or whatever of CBS, is they're just going with another convention company. Now, some people in my Klingon community know more about this new company than I do. I know zero about them, but I've heard some grumblings about it. So this may not be a step up, for at least from the fan point of view, but I can't intelligently speak to that myself, not from personal experience. Yeah, how sad is it that Star Trek fandom basically created modern cosplay, but had to borrow a Japanese loanword to describe it? I would go even further than that, back to the drawing board. I would say how sad it is that the Star Trek fandom basically created modern cosplay, and CBS has done everything they can to kill it. And I don't mean, and rightly so, but I think you're getting the wrong joke from me.
No, I don't think it's funny. I'm just laughing at just the horror of it, I guess. I don't know.
There has been, for the longest time, and anybody who's involved in any kind of cosplay knows this. If you create a costume, okay, it's for yourself, for your own personal use, and nobody can say boo about it. I made some clothes and I'm going out in public in it. You don't like it, too darn bad. Just like when I'm sitting at my D&D table and I call my halflings hobbits, Wizards of the Coast can't come in and sue me, or actually J.R. Tolkien's estate can't come in and sue me. It's, that's not how these things work. You don't own what goes on in my head or what goes on my body. But Star Trek conventions were actually actively trying to push, you can't come in here wearing costumes that aren't officially licensed products.
That's terrible.
Oh, and the Klingon community flew into a rage. And I very calmly said in my Klingon community, I said, guys, calm down. Here's what you do when you go to a convention dressed as a Klingon. If anyone stops you and says to you that you're wearing unlicensed costumes, you can't come in here with that, you say to them, okay, fine. You point me to the vendor that is selling the officially licensed Klingon uniform, and I will buy it right now. Done.
And of course, there you go. No one's selling it.
Exactly, because it's never been licensed. They don't have the licenses out there. So it's like until you have officially sanctioned Klingon forehead kits, which haven't been around since the 80s, until you actually have Klingon armor, that for sale, which they never did, unless you have officially licensed Federation uniforms, which they no longer do since Anovos went bankrupt. Yeah.
It's just so stupid though, because these are the fans promoting it's promotion at the free promotion. You don't have to pay them. You should be paying them to be showing up in the costumes, but not.
It's the same thing that I've always said about Lucasfilm prior. I don't know about now, but prior to Disney, Lucasfilm, I don't know what Lucasfilm did about C&Ds and stuff like that, but they would always, if they saw something being done bootleg, they'd turn around and license it. If they went to a convention and they saw people selling lightsabers, the lightsaber toys would hit the market. And there is nobody selling bootleg. Well, there are some people, but most people are buying the licensed stuff because it's cheaper and it comes with sound and special effects. And you can't compete with that as an independent person working out of your garage anymore. The costumes, they have licensed costumes that people can buy, but they're also not stopping you if you like make yourself a personalized upgrade. It's like, oh yeah, that's pretty good, and you make everybody look better. There are no problems there because they're making tons of bank on all the toys and costumes and role-playing aids and stuff like that. So, Star Trek has just never been able to figure that out. And for crying out loud, they can't get anyone to pay for the license for the new stuff because nobody wants it.
Yeah, didn't Todd McFarlane didn't want the new phasers?
Absolutely.
What did I want to tell you though? This reminds me, what you said about the costume reminds me of a story. I don't know if it was a guy who worked for Square Enix. It might have been like, and he, in his spare time, just for fun, he makes custom action figures just as a hobbyist, know? And I think he did some of Lara Croft, and they told him, you can't be making action figures in your spare time like this, because he worked for the game company. But he wasn't selling them. He was just making them and showing them off online.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little ridiculous.
And that's just it. They absolutely can say you can't sell them. You can't tell me I can't make them and display them in my house and show pictures of them. You cannot do that. Fine, take me to court. I would love for you to do that, because all you're going to do is waste your money and your time. That's just the way it is. And I know a lot of these companies, they see you do something they don't like, whether it's legal or not, they'll try to intimidate you out of doing it. You just got to know your rights, and be prepared that you might have to go to court over it. But ultimately, you're going to win that case. Anyone can sue for anything, but you can't necessarily win. No
one went nuts over this stuff years ago. Okay, this is recent, I think. At least that's my impression.
It's because of the internet, my friend. It used to be done out of people's garages, and the only way that you found out about it was someone you would see them at a convention. You'd pick up their card and you'd mail away for a little paper catalog, and they'd send you this mimeographed or Xerox catalog in the mail, and you'd go, I want a lightsaber, I want a blaster, and I want a Star Trek communicator.
Gotcha.
They'd pour out the resin molds and they'd send it to you. Very, very difficult to track that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
But nowadays it's all on the internet, and they can just do a search. Star Trek props. There's your Etsy store. They send you a cease and desist. They could. They don't always do that. There's too many for them to do that, but sometimes it happens. Yeah. Internet's made it easy for people to sell their wares. They've also made it easier to be caught doing it. So retro blasting always says the fans are doing the best work. So we sit with our sphincters clenched every time you find yourself a good source like Stan Solo or the Fan Strike Back or one of those that are making custom action figures and selling them, and you get your orders in and you just hope that they don't get Axonard,
Yeah.
And so far we've been pretty happy. I don't think it's going to happen before we do our rewatch of the Star Wars holiday special this year, but I did order an Ichibaka action figure from one of the online stores
you have to
over
show
in the
that
UK. Oh, I absolutely will.
Okay. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, let's.
Big news.
So, well, which one do you want to do? Because there's a couple more.
Okay, there are a few of them. Let me see. Star Trek Discovery renewed for season 4. Everybody excited?
Oh, this was. Oh, darn it. Let's just.
Darn it! This is. I have to admit, I was watching the announcement. Sonequa Martin Green. I feel kind of bad. I'll say this: she sounds genuinely enthusiastic about the show. And I noticed that's a difference between what I noticed with some of the Star Wars actors like Daisy Ridley. Because I think deep down the Star Wars actors know they were in a pile of crap. But Sonequa actually does I think she actually likes the product.
Yeah.
It's just I feel bad. It's not a good show.
So from what I hear about the behind the scenes on it, I guess that she is definitely not comparable to Captain Manhater. You know, what's her name? What's her name? Brie Larson. You know, because apparently behind the scenes, all of her coworkers like her. She gets along well with everyone. She enjoys what she's doing. You know, God love her for that, right? But the fact is, the fans still hate the show. The fans have absolutely no interest in it. So I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, and I'm glad you're having fun doing what you're doing, and that you believe in it. The fans don't.
Yes.
And that's why this headline is kind of funny, because literally this announcement came out the day after the first episode of season 3 premiered. You haven't even gotten any. Well, of course, it's not like when it was on TV, when we got, viewership numbers and you knew how it was doing in the ratings. And based on that, you would decide whether or not to renew. So what this tells us is they were already planning to do a season 4, regardless of how season 3 was received. And let me tell you something. The initial reactions to the first episode of season 3 have not been very positive.
They keep falling into the same trap. They did it the last season. They're doing it again this season, where it's this big mystery that they have to solve. Yeah. Last season, it was the Red Angel that was going to destroy the universe, and then it wasn't the Red Angel. It was some AI that was never well defined called Control, and didn't. It felt like they were writing it as they were going along.
They absolutely were. I mean, that's come out.
And one of the writers on it got fired because he was not PC on the set. I remember that. That was a big news story.
I know. And it turned out that he was a person of color to begin with. And he's like,
yes.
Do you understand the problem with this?
He was just repeating something he heard. He wasn't even
something that was said to him. Yeah.
I know. It was just,
I know it's freaking ridiculous, but that's the world we live in. So here, if you guys want to hear a good commentary about this particular thing, I recommend Doomcock on this one. The reason I do is because Doomcock has this graphic that he puts up of Mikey Spock, as he calls her, Michael Burnham. Last 2 seasons, everyone was saying how wooden she was and how she couldn't act. It seems like the first episode of this season, they went out of their way to make her manic and crazy and laughing and over the top emoting. And he's got all these freeze frames put together in a collage. She looks psychotic.
Well, is it the acting though, or is it the writing, the scripts that these actors are having to follow on?
I would say it's probably, I don't want to blame the acting too much. I'm going to instead blame the directing. But man, yes, that also does come under the writing too. I will always give the benefit of the doubt to actors that they are just doing what they're told. And the reason I do that is because that's what their job is. If they're doing what they're supposed to, they're doing what they're told to do. And they're doing what the script says, and they're doing what the director tells them to do. But if I see them in multiple roles acting exactly the same way, then I start to go, you know what, they're not very good actors.
I mean, the only other thing I saw her on was The Walking Dead.
And she didn't have enough of a role in that for me to be able to make a comparison.
She was a regular person on that show. She was I think a potential love interest for Abraham, and he was already seeing the other. This is going to sound terrible, but I was thinking like there's this big struggle because I think he was seeing Rosita but he was also interested in her. And part of me wanted to say, it's the end of the world, zombie apocalypse. There's no saying you can't have both of them, but I'm going to keep quiet. That's what I saw it at the time. I'm like, well, anyway.
And I'll tell you what, with modern Hollywood, I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted to start pushing polyamorous storylines. But
they have on like some of the episodic type series, like Elementary had one where like it was a polyamorous group that was involved in a murder or something like that.
See, now that's the kind of representation that really ticks people off.
Or maybe it wasn't that they were. I don't know if they were involved or if they thought they were involved, and that was a red herring. You know how that usually works out.
Yeah, but I mean, think about that. If you're in a community, you're in the LGBT community, okay, and you want your representation on a show, but the representation you get on the show is the LGBT person is the killer. You start getting a little upset about that, Rightly so. Wait. I meant positive representation, and you'll actually hear that many times. We want positive representation. They don't just say representation. We want positive representation.
Yes.
And I don't take me wrong on this. I am not necessarily. I'm not deriding that. I think everybody fairly wants their community to be seen positively, and don't really care to have them constantly shown as negative. I mean, that's always been the problem, right? You go back and certain races were always the bad guys, and women were always portrayed this way. And I understand that that's wrong. That I think all of us can get behind isn't right. But sometimes, as long as you're showing them positively most of the time, occasionally, I'm sorry, people are not bound by their race, their gender preferences, or their genders, whether or not they're good or bad. Sometimes they're gonna be the villain. That's just the way it works. That's
right.
Yes.
I mean, they made that point on an episode of David E. Kelly series, the Practice. Yeah, it was the Practice lawyer show, and Christopher Reeve was the murderer in the story, but he was in the wheelchair, and he was saying, he made a point. He says, "What are you talking about? I'm in a wheelchair. People, disabled people are should we sympathize? We're not villains,
right.
And he was making that point, but he was the murderer. Do you understand?
Exactly. I do like Netter's point about Star Trek Discovery being a venereal disease, STD. Now you have the diehards that'll come out and go, well, that's not really the naming convention. It's that's not how.
They should know that we always do acronyms for these series.
Well, and you look for the acronym that's clever and works. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. My mother had the foresight when she named me. She named me Troy specifically because some of the other names that she had chosen, she's like, I see how they could shorten that or change it around, or how it'll get picked on. There's not much you can do with Troy. And honestly, growing up, I had a lot of friends say, you know what? There's not much you can do with Troy. Can't lengthen it, can't shorten it. It's just Troy. I'm like, yep. You can call me a nasty name, but you can't do anything with my name.
Let me see. But the big plot line this season is the burn, all the delight in the far future of the Federation, that everything fell apart because all the dilithium crystals burned up.
Yeah. So Doomcock has a great take on that. Instead of calling it the burn, he keeps calling it the Burnham. And he says, in describing the first episode, he says that the exposition that's given to explain what's happened is, back in the such and such days, this evil villain named Kurtzman, and then he does this whole meta analysis, and he goes, okay, no, that's not really what he said. What he actually said was, but the point is, they're still crapping all over canon, right? Even we thought that by jumping 1,000 years in the future, there's nothing that they can do. No, they've decided that at some point in the past, all dilithium spontaneously combusted, and so now space travel is no longer possible in the future. Well, that's just great. In other words, you're saying that the Star Trek we love is destined to go away. You're again destroying the past, wiping it out.
I'm going to say this. They already made this television series. It was called Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda.
Yeah, good point.
Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, and this was smart what they did on that show. It's not Star Trek, but the system's Commonwealth was basically supposed to be an equivalent to the Federation, right?
Yeah.
Then something goes horribly wrong. There's a peace breakdown with the Nietzscheans because they were going to let the Magog into the Commonwealth, and then the Andromeda gets sucked into a black hole, or at least on the side of a black hole, comes out, and then he's far in the future, and the Commonwealth is gone, and he's trying to reassemble the Commonwealth, and that was fine, I think, as an idea for a show that is not Star Trek. Do you understand?
Right. Exactly.
And I like that premise on that show, but I don't like them doing that with Star Trek. Now, I have a suspicion, at least from the trailer I saw for this season, that it's going to be Michael Burnham has to go back in time and stop this from happening.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, that could be, and if that's the case, the tiny, soft, almost smothered voice in the back of my head, hoping for the best, is saying, well, maybe they've realized how badly they've effed up, and the solution is going to be to go back and wipe out the entire continuity of Discovery in order to fix things. But reality is we've held out hope for far too long, and they keep dashing those hopes. And so we know that's not going to happen. But I don't know how they're going to do it. It's going to have to be the whole ship somehow going back in time, because they're basically ripping off Back to the Future. They've used up their plutonium, and they're going to have to find a lightning bolt to hit them to go back in time, because they have the only dilithium left in the universe, apparently. But also, this first episode sees the destruction of the Red Angel. I guess the way Doomcock described it, she basically had turned into Tony Stark with that armor.
Yeah.
And she uses it to, she sets it on self-destruct and teleports it into whatever it was they needed to destroy to save themselves or whatever. So it gets rid of the MacGuffin from last season.
The whole thing, I remember people were complaining, why is she acting all excited about finding life and all this other stuff? The big thing about the previous season was this AI was going to eventually wipe out all life in the universe. Okay. Yeah. That's why she's excited, but everyone's forgotten about that storyline now. That's what it was. Okay.
Well, that's because it was such a crappy storyline. No one really paid attention to it.
It wasn't fleshed out. Star Trek needs to go back to being episodic. That would help.
But see, again, that's bad writing, though. Even in a situation like that, you have to assume that there's people jumping in that haven't seen what went before. So all it takes is one line, there's life, well, what kind of life? It doesn't matter. It's life. Control was going to wipe out all life in the universe. And here we are 1,000 years in the future, and there's still life. That means he didn't succeed. Boom, done.
Yeah.
You've brought everyone up to speed, and you've answered all the questions. But that's too much like good writing.
Yes.
And that's what 25 seconds that we could have spent preaching.
Well, you can't give up that time. Anyway, Alex Kurtzman has mapped out Star Trek until 2027. So we're going to have 7 more years, and I'm starting to think this is going to happen. I think I keep thinking there's gonna be a course correction, and I'm not seeing any evidence of this. Star Trek Prodigy, another animated series with Kate Mulgrew as Captain Janeway. What happened to Admiral Janeway? That was my question mark. Because wasn't she an admiral when we last left her?
Yeah.
Well, they forgot about that, maybe.
Well, here's what I'm going to say to this. Okay, and again, this is me saying something that I haven't heard anywhere else. I don't think anyone else is talking about this, but Alex Kurtzman says he has planned out Star Trek through 2027. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest you also consider that Rian Johnson was talking about his Star Wars trilogy up until just a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yes.
You can have plans all you want. But what Alex Kurtzman has planned and what CBS has planned may be two very, very, very different things.
I am starting to wonder, though, because I never hear anything going against any of this. Strange New Worlds apparently still in the pipeline. Section 31 still in development. No
What
one
does that
wants
tell
the
you?
Section 31 show.
What does that tell you?
You think it's BS? You think
I think it's BS.
I think I said it's Kurtzman bullshitting. That's what I've written down
It's
here.
absolutely a bunch of crap. He's talking out of his ass because he can't. Well, for the same reason Ryan Johnson, he just can't accept that people don't like his stuff. And so he's going to plan to go forward until they actually show him the door. But let me tell you something about Kate Mulgrew and that animated thing.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
How do you accept that as canon? Even if you accept all of this other STD Picard stuff as canon, how do you accept anything from an animated series as canon?
Well, here's the deal. We're not talking about the other show. This is going to be a new show they're working on, Prodigy.
Still, yeah.
How do you? I don't know. There's always this argument as to whether or not the original Star Trek animated series from the early '70s is canon. Some people argue it's the final 2 years of the mission. Of course, that actually felt like the live action show, at least as far as writing went.
It's the same rule of canon that has been true of anything else. It is not canon until it is. It's not considered mainline canon, but they have canonized certain elements. So I'm trying to think, like some of the history of Spock from the episode Yesteryear, the animated series episode Yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those elements of Spock's history have been canonized, either in mentions in the movies or in Enterprise.
That's the story with the dog with his pet dog, right?
Yes.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
And actually, it was more like a bear, but
whatever was the pet, and it was basically we can keep it alive, but it'll be in pain.
Yeah. Exactly. And the existence of the animals that were mentioned there was reintroduced in Enterprise. Spock having that particular pet. Well, actually, that was the animated series drawing from an actual canon source. So, so there's that. I'm trying to remember some of the other elements, but just because they've canon. So, in other words, I'll draw a comparison. Wookiee Life Day. Well, Life Day, period, is now canonized in Star Wars because of The Mandalorian. That does not necessarily mean that the entire holiday special is canonized.
I see. So they may pick elements of something.
Exactly.
And
I would, and that is how the original animated series has always been.
Okay.
Now, when you get to something like Lower Decks, I have said not only do you have the fact that it's an animated series, you also have the fact that it's a farce. And when I said that in one of the Trek communities, somebody shot back, well, just because you don't like it doesn't make it not canon. I said, I didn't say I didn't like it. When I said it was a farce, I meant that literally. It is literally a farce. And then I copied from Merriam-Webster what farce means. It is literally a tongue-in-cheek, parody. Yeah.
Funny.
There is no way you can take those storylines as literal. They are a farce. Therefore, how can you take them as canon? Especially when they make meta references, they're kind of not breaking the fourth wall, but they're making references to the real world, know, and they're saying, oh, look, they canonized the goofy Mego Star Wars or Star Trek helmet with the Mars light on top. No, they didn't. They just made a visual joke. You did.
Okay. That actually is kind of funny.
It is funny.
Yeah, okay.
And as a farce, I could see that show being humorous. But I mean, that's like saying that Family Guy is historically accurate. It's not about real people in a real world. It's a realistic world, but it's still a farce.
Mm-hmm. With
a talking dog, no less.
Yes.
Albeit a very funny talking dog. So yeah, I put no stock in, and I certainly understand anything Kate Mulgrew is saying. She's been given work. I mean, but they're doing to her the same thing that they did to Picard. So it's kind of a shame too.
Well, we'll see. I have to say, I made a point that Picard and Discovery have different problems. My issue with Picard is that the characters on there are all broken people that if things were different, I think actually would be well served on a Star Trek series like Captain Rios and Raffi, I think would be decent officers to have on a Star Trek show. I didn't have a problem with those characters. It's just they broke them down and made them miserable.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I see Picard more as. Whereas,
Not to mention that in the greater world building, her doing drugs and smoking and drinking and all that kind of stuff, and
if she was not in Federation space, maybe if she wasn't on Earth,
that's just absolutely ridiculous. It goes against all the canon that they've already.
The point is, we've gotten better. Humans have gotten better. That's the whole point of Star Trek. I mean, we're not perfect. I mean, even like sometimes you'll have people in jail, like Bashir's parents, who did the genetic engineering on. Remember, but they were doing that out of love for their son, at least. Okay, they were doing the wrong thing for the right reason. Okay?
Yeah, and that's what the stories have always been. But it's just how you deal with those storylines. This idea that they've already established that there is no such thing as money in the Star Trek universe. It's a post-scarcity world. So the idea that she's in poverty, I'm sorry, in a world that's post-scarcity. If you're in poverty, that's a choice you've made.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. She was complaining about his antique furniture and all this stuff. And I love that Red Letter Media said, wouldn't that antique furniture have gotten burned down in the fire that killed his brother? And then the family, never mind. That was, I'm getting off track.
That's putting too much thought into canon. They didn't do that much research. Look, they watched The Cage and they thought they were watching, the actual pilot for the original series.
They reused parts of that for that
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, Star Trek. But here's another thing. Kurtzman said Star Trek must also always be sold to deep fans.
That is the most hypocritical thing I have ever heard. That is because he has gone so far out of his way to alienate deep fans. Either he's had an epiphany and learned something, or is more likely the case, it's a talking point that he's been told that he needs to use to try and lure fans back. Either way, it ain't working.
He was saying he wants to please diehard fans, but bring in younger people. I'm going to be honest. When I was a child, I saw Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. That was my introduction to Star Trek. I'd heard of the old show, but never watched it. That's what brought me into Star Trek. But that was just telling a good story. That's how you bring people in, old and new. You just tell a good story, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. And he was saying Star Trek has never been a broad comedy before, and I'm thinking Star Trek 4. There were also episodes of the shows that had comedic aspects of them. Remember the Trouble Triples?
Yeah.
And then they did the Deep Space Nine one where they went back in time and did the whole thing with
Troubles
the
and Tribulations. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had another episode where they played a baseball game with Vulcans. That was kind of lighter hearted. I mean, you can do comedic stuff on Star Trek without.
So here's what it comes down to, and this is true. This is a life lesson, people. I mean, you can apply this to the political world right now and to the media and everything that's going on. What someone says is meaningless. It's what they do that matters. Okay. I can't hear what you're saying over the sound of what you actually do, and when I look at Kurtzman saying this, sorry, that means nothing to me because it stands in direct opposition to everything you've done since you took over Star Trek. Okay. On the other hand, I look at the tweet that recently went out from Neil Gaiman, where he was chiming in on defending artists and their how they write. What's the term I'm looking for? Respecting the source material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because someone, I guess one of the streaming services did a take on Terry Pratchett's Ringworld or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and all the fans are going, this looks nothing like it. And Terry Pratchett's daughter came out and said, yeah, this may be a good show. I'm not making a positive or negative against it, but it has nothing to do with my father's work. And some writer came out and said, well, it's Hollywood using an established fan base to write something in a world inspired by her, blah, 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 blah. And Neil Gaiman chimed in and said, yeah, that's the problem. Fans are fans because they're fans of what they're fans of, or something like that. He said, you can't call it a Batman movie if you have a guy dressed in a yellow trench coat who has a bat as a pet and call him Batman.
No.
And I'm like, finally, someone actually gets it. You know, you're trying to capitalize on a fan base, but you're not giving them what they're fans of. And then you're surprised when you fail. It's that simple. You're banking that you get a new fan base, but you're absolutely jettisoning the old fan base. And you're only keeping a small percentage that are dumb enough to say, well, it's got the name of what I love, so it must be what I love.
And
you know,
I think that only can go so long before it doesn't
it
work.
Shocks me how many people actually do that, but not nearly enough for something to be successful.
Okay, and let's see. The next story is Star Trek Lower Decks. Every showrunner Mike and he says every Starfleet officer on the show is baseline bisexual. I'd love to comment on this, but look at the time.
Oh gosh,
maybe next week or never. Okay, I'm thinking I'm wondering what drugs they're taking in the writing studio. But anyway,
this goes just to mention it real quick, going back to what we said earlier, this is about representation, right? And although I am not in that community, I know a lot of people in the LGBT community that have come out many times and said, look, you know, straight is straight, gay is gay, and bi is bi. Right. And unfortunately, some people tend to, equivocate, and everyone there are people that are bisexual that think everyone is baseline bisexual. And the fact is, both straight people and gay people go, no, I like what I like. I am not bi. I am straight. Or no, I like what I like. I'm gay. That's all there is to it.
So maybe this says more about this particular showrunner than anything else.
Probably does. And I haven't seen yet what's going to come of this, but I'm guessing there's going to be a backlash, not just from the straight community, but from the gay community as well. Okay. That's just he just stepped into some weeds that didn't need stepping in.
I think so. It feels that way. So we'll see if anything comes of it, or if maybe the Lower Decks is just so low on anybody's radar.
But that's one that we'll come back to as we get more information on it. But it's interesting to.
I'm sure we'll be covering more Star Trek because it's interesting. It's more interesting than what's going on with Star Wars and Doctor Who, because it seems like it's a bunch of things going on, not just like one standard.
There sure is.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up.
I'm immediately dropping the link to Mr. Matchstick right away because he's going to be starting like now.
And Wolf 10 Media, I think, is going to be guest starring on with him. And I just want to mention that Wolf 10 Media is going to try to be on afternoons on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the week. I think just check out his channel if you get a chance.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be doing some afternoon discussions on there about different topics.
Should we pound through these real quick? So
go ahead.
We just listed the weebs for tonight. Sound Engraver Monday. Let's tune into her for the most positive channel in the Professor Geek Network. I think for a little uplifting inspiration.
She couldn't even be mean to Ryan Johnson.
I know, right? She is an example for all of us. Let me tell you. Brings us to Tuesday, Professor Geek. This week is
Wolfman.
The Wolfman. Thank you. Thank you so much. On Tuesday Night Classics. Daniel Herron Soundtracks with Birdman on Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. That's they're going to try to do Dracula again, right?
Bram Stoker's Dracula. I'll be on there. So will Big Al, special guest Big Al. So we're all three of us are going to be on there.
Listening to that. Overlapping him at 9 Eastern, 8 Central is Green Lion Girl with her playthrough of I Just Did It Again. It's Hitman, and I got to change that on my listing here. That's why I keep doing it. There we go.
You play in a
That's
sense.
The last time I make that mistake, okay?
Timothy Oliphant played him in the movie, I remember. Okay.
Honestly, I don't know what's going on, but just like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for Fan Man if he's doing Tuesday and Thursday.
I think one of them's a live and one of them's a pre-recorded. That's what he's doing now.
Tuesday and Thursday, and then Friday night he is doing I is he doing the Hammer Dracula or something
Yeah,
like
he
that?
just did that. What was the next Hammer movie? I think he's doing a Hammer. I don't remember what it was now, though. Darn
Whatever it is, log into him and hit the notification bell and tune into him on Friday night for Friday Night Frights. That brings us to next Saturday, which is on my channel. I haven't gotten the link up yet, but we will be, based on your feedback in the poll on the Professor Geek fan page, we will be watching Shaun of the Dead.
I love Shaun of the Dead.
And
And
just launch
what
next
is the
week.
professor still doing a thing on Thursday this week?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, this is we're wrapping up the book study of the
Halloween Tree.
Thank you. I missed
Great.
that one.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for stopping by. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And be sure to check out the Professor Geek Facebook group. That's the best way to keep in touch of everything everyone's doing.
Yep.
And I appreciate you, everyone, tuning in. Your comments. Thank you very much. Any last words, Troy?
Yeah, keep your chins up, everybody. Things will turn around, I'm sure.
Hopefully. Red alert. Okay. Good night. And let me hit the...
Take us out.
Okay.
Ah.